would have been burned.
You know what we're doing today, though?
Today, we are talking about Callaway. They have a sweet deal. You want to tell everybody about it?
Yeah, 50% bonus on your trade-in. That's not bad.
Yes. So people who have this old stuff, and I know Matt and I talk about this all the time, how many old clubs or people just bought clubs the wrong way and their garage is full of garbage. So this is a great opportunity for that. So it's really like call your local golf tech and tell them you have a bunch of clubs that you want to trade in and buy some new Callaway stuff. That's step number one. And it's so easy. And then from there, the coach will help you the rest of the way. I can't tell you that this is hard.
I think I've got an old set of rack TPs.
Yeah.
Then the next TP model.
Yeah.
And then like probably 4 drivers.
And I probably have the same thing. I bet I've got 4 sets of clubs. Now, generally, we use that for instructor training and just have them laying around so they're easy to measure for CPM and swing weight. And we learn how to do the club fitting piece that way. But everybody who's a serious golfer probably has a set or 2 of clubs that they don't trade in. I don't think that's really how a lot of people go through it. But I thought we'd talk about things that Callaway has to offer that you can get instead. So I think you should at least look at getting fit or trying some new irons every couple of years. The tech, especially in irons, has changed recently. So Callaway still has these 2 in their lineup from last year. So it's the Apex Forge and the Apex Pro. Both of these are just going to sound softer, would be the way I would describe it when you hit them, because they're forged clubs. This Apex Pro, or this Apex, just the regular forged from last year, the Apex 19, is an awesome iron. Like, if this pretty much fits everybody that walks through the door. There's no one who couldn't use this. It looks really good, like a skilled player could use it, not a lot of offset, but it's got a bunch of forgiveness built into the back of it as well. And they launch pretty high for really distance clubs. That was one of the first ones into that distance category for good players, which I think is still a pretty untapped market. So you got those.
Matt Rudy, and are either of those in your golf bag? What's in your golf bag?
I have a ever rotating band of equipment. I'm trying the new level irons right now, but I've got a Callaway 3-wood, and I've got a PXG driver, and I've got some Quack custom wedges that I love. I just got, and I've got a Byron Morgan custom made putter.
Interesting. Corey, do you get anything new lately? Or are we talking about what you're going to get? Putters, lots of putters. Yeah. I did see that putter. Then you've got the Callaway Maverick iron. This one is like your rocket launcher. So if you need more distance with an iron, this is your jam. Big, thick sole on it. I wouldn't say it's a tremendous amount of offset, but the face itself, the biggest change in irons recently has been how fast they're making this. They're making it, Callaway uses some AI tech, which is probably just a fancy way of saying they're really watching the ball speeds all over the club face. These will launch more like drivers than, say, the Apex Pro iron. This one is made to hit the ball shorter, but possibly be more consistent on those shots. So good players tend to like those. You got the Maverick. I think fits anybody who's struggling with their iron game. The Maverick Max is interesting for me as well, though. This one, if anything, is made to go slightly higher. The lofts on these are 3 degrees weaker than just the regular Mavericks. So while I like the stronger lofted clubs, it makes sense. All these irons are made to launch really high. Even at some slower swing speeds, or if you have the wrong shaft in the golf club, it can be possible to hit them too low. So you can hit a screaming low shots. That's where I would tell someone if they were going to try this Maverick iron. Most people I would tell start at the 6 iron. Don't bother with the 4 iron. Don't bother with the 5 iron. Just start at the 6 and see how your launch conditions are for that. And if you can land a golf ball on the green close to 45 degrees, then you have an iron that's useful. If you can't, then chances are you need to use that off the tee, or you're punching out from the trees with that club. Here's a good chart that producer John or producer Sabrina just yanked up there. You can basically pick based on your club head speed which iron you should start with. So this is why trying to fit yourself is not the best idea. It's unless you know your club head speed with a 6 iron, you don't really have a good place to start, or even the 7 iron. So higher ball speeds, and then I'd take this chart, and it's going to be very dependent on the iron. the Maverick Max, you're going to be able to go one iron more. So most people could start with a 5-iron with this one pretty quickly. But this is stuff you get when you're getting fit for golf clubs. So I do really like this. If I were going to play a large club yesterday when I was hitting with Adam on the show, I grabbed that Maverick Max iron. I hit one shot with it that was pretty solid, a 7-iron that flew 205 and landed at 45 degrees with a steel fiber 90-gram shaft. I mean, these are rocket launchers, just built to go far. So that's a cool option.
Hey,
Maverick Max.
Matt, I have a game. I don't know if you watched yesterday, but how many shots did it take for Nick to hit a shank? Did you happen to see that, or is this?
I didn't see.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go look now.
How many shots do you think he took?
He's watching now. He's got no guess. I don't know.
Do you have a guess, Matt? Any guess? How many shots?
4.
It was 3. He had some impressive skill there.
So disappointed in your underestimating my abilities. Like this one though, nice shiny Maverick Pro. So this one's still made to be pretty hollow. It's fairly wide soled for a player's iron. And I've hit maybe a handful of these, and these go a long way too. Brad Skupeka, who we have on the show regularly, is awesome on our team here. He hits his pitching wedge close to 200 yards in the air with these. So at altitude, that's not totally uncommon. I'm not too far behind that, but it is really long would be my start. So if you're a good golfer,
what counts as not too far behind that? 40 yards?
No, I bet I hit the pitching wedge in that 180, 185. It's just the ball carries here, man. That's why it's fun to hit so many of these shots. And we go for the high launching drivers like this one. Start with Maverick Max. This is the most forgiving driver that they have, and it's got 2 different weight ports on here. If I can try not to wave that around too much. So you've got a lighter weight here and a heavier weight here, and you can move those around. I like this a whole lot better than weight tracks. Like most commonly, the Epic Flash had a weight track back here where you could slide that around. The problem with weight tracks is that you have to use a lot of weight to actually build that and hold in where the screws and the weights are going to go. So if this was a weight track, right about where I'm drawing my finger on this, it'd be you'd have a lot of extra weight in a spot in the club where you don't want it. So I'm actually a big fan of doing these more pointed and aimed spots on the club locations to do that at. That can really change the draw bias of your club. So if you slice and you want to hit it straight, Maverick Max is a good way to go. The one that's been, I think is really polarizing because the utility of this is interesting, is the Maverick Sub-Zero. This name has been around for a while. This one I think is great for your better player, and specifically those who swing fast and want to reduce spin. That tends to be an issue with better golfers. You swing faster, and you can impart more spin on the ball if you use the wrong spin loft or just wrong loft driver. So this one, if you put the heaviest weight up in the front, you lessen how forgiving this driver is quite a bit, but it can really give you a tremendous amount of ball speed that way and reduce your spin. So it's really just taking the center of gravity, moving that thing down quite a bit, and poof, this is a rocket launcher. So if you're like Cordy, sometimes we talk about how good of a driver you are. I know relative to the rest of your game, that's by far the strength. Something like this might really be able to give you some extra yardage. Would be an interesting try for you. I know you're a ping guy by trade. And the last one was
drivers, Nick. That's all that matters. Just putters and drivers.
I hear you, man. Just drive it up near the green. The last one, and the most popular one, and one I think is a really nice overall driver or all-around driver, is this Maverick. So they did something different with this. They went with the idea of, let's make you swing it faster. Let's try that. So you can see the shape and the design of this, how there's very little golf club down here in the bottom. Whereas when you take the Max as an equivalent, you can see how much more weight they have low and back in the club. This enables your Max to be a more forgiving driver, but it does have a problem with the aerodynamic qualities of it. So if you took this and you swing it, the aerodynamic properties of not having a lot of weight low and back in the club allow you to move this a couple miles an hour faster. Then you couple that with the fact that they did a nice job of not making this a really high MOI driver as you do that. Typically when you got this weight here, but it's also placed much higher in the club because there isn't much on the bottom here. So when you do that, that tends to raise the center of gravity up. The ball spins a lot more. They did a nice job of designing this one. where you might swing it a couple miles an hour faster, but it doesn't spin a lot.
Let me put my thinking hat on here and just a really good question. If this doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will.
I'm ready.
Is it more helpful?
I can't wait.
Yes, I built that up way too much. Is it more helpful to swing 2 to 3 miles an hour faster, but hit it a little poorer and have lower ball speed that way, or is it to swing it a little slower but have higher ball speed because it has more forgiveness? Is that question make sense?
I think both can work, but the way I would do it is hit the shot very solid and start with that one.
So you would sacrifice your arrow to hit it more solidly and gain ball speed.
Correct. So I'm a big fan of moving the MOI back in a club and down so that maybe it spins a little more, but it's much more forgiving. Then just make people swing faster. That's usually what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
But there are people who maybe don't have the instructor around or don't want to take golf lessons and want to just reduce the spin. They think they spin it too much. So that Sub-Zero is really cool. Then they did a cool thing with the fairway woods. They have all 3 of those designs still continuing into this. So where that's interesting is that they do the same thing. Your Sub-Zero will spin less. It's much more fade bias. And I think this is an interesting little picture, if I can get that. The weight that sits up near the leading edge between the jailbreak, it's slightly towards the toe. So if anything, when I talk a ton about where you want to hit it on the face with hybrids and fairway woods, and now if you hit the shots ever so slightly towards the toe, they hook too much. That's actually being reduced a little bit by that one. So you might want a driver, as an example, Cordy, that just goes really straight. So you take a Maverick Max out. But you might want a 3-wood that you think you need to hit a little further based on the golf course you play, or you feel like you don't hit those as well, or they go too high. You can get a Sub-Zero fairway wood and really just help maximize your ability as a golfer. Or I think the most common one would be Maverick, again, is made to be swung fast and launch it far. It's just a pretty typical fairway wood design. That's their bread and butter. But if you struggled hitting your 3-wood, like I think we talked about on another show, like everything after 200 yards got pretty tough for you to use. Then you take the Maverick Max 3-wood, which is the most forgiving. It's a little draw bias relative to the rest, but this one would be most likely the one you could hit the highest and spin the most. So it might become a more usable club for you that way. So you don't have to follow the line perfectly from driver to driver, iron to iron. Couple that with my favorite golf ball, because this really is that triple track, I think is really interesting. So you've got that golf ball. You can still have the same putters as well. Triple track ball, triple track putter. You have quite a combo for alignment. And especially when you get like these really long alignment aids, like this white one here. This is one of my favorite ones, the Marksman putter from Odyssey with this golf ball. And you've got just a really cool way to practice your putting if you struggle with that. So all that kind of wraps up into some hybrids, some wedges, some different putters. A lot of golfers, I think, like that spider putter that they've seen Dustin Johnson, Rory McIlroy, and a host of other people use. Well, Callaway or Odyssey came out with one as well. Their Stroke Lab 10. This is a really super high MOI putter, very forgiving. A couple of weights really far back in the head. And it looks very similar. And maybe some people find that cleaner. And I actually like the little thicker white line. If you're going to have a line, I'd prefer it be big than small. I still like the ones without it. That spider putter with no lines is one of my favorites. But this one's not bad either. It's a good alternative or a good choice. So if you're looking for a new putter, trade in some of your old gear and you might get the opportunity to do something like that. So I think that's about it for the Callaway clubs, like staying super high level. But the point really being trade in your old stuff. You get 150% value right now to do that right here. And then everything that we've been talking about, from the CG pictures that you see behind me to club education. If you go backwards into a couple of these shows we've been doing, Cordy, you can find all sorts of reasons to why the center of gravity or where the sweet spot of the club is. It's not in the middle very often. I've only found maybe one that I might call it's in the middle, and why they're designed that way. So it's an awesome time right now to trade in some old gear, get rid of, clean out your garage, have your wife stop yelling at you, Cordy, get rid of one of those putters or 30 of those 35 putters you have. That's what we're doing.
Mr. Rudy, you were involved in some club testing.
Yep.
what was the general perception of the Callaway drivers, the 3 different variations? What do you remember from feedback from folks that were hitting those for you guys?
Well, the group I get year over year, it's the Jason Gus, it's the accomplished Club Pro group. And I think what everyone in my category was looking for, whatever the product line was differentiation between the models. Where if there's different clubs in the line, that they're actually when you put them in a skilled player's hands, can you actually see differences in ball flight and differences in the launch monitor data to account for that, so that they're actually, when you're actually making a choice, that there is a choice. And I think what Callaway does a really good job with is creating real choices when you're trying to go put something in your hand. It's not, there's not just a different label on the bottom. And I think Nick would probably back that up with the data that he's measured them, so he knows. So there really is a benefit, number one, to getting fit, and number two, there's choices. And I mean, I'm not quite old yet. I'm sort of mid-old, but I can remember the days when you'd go buy something with a stock shaft and a stock head, and that was that. And if you were going to tweak it, you're tweaking it with lead tape or something along those lines. And we have much better tools now.
Yeah.
And
you had that one driver, like the TaylorMade burner driver. That was all you could buy. The
right.
Callaway Big Bertha driver. That was it.
Yeah, and if there were 2 shafts, that was a lot to choose from. Yeah. So I think, just like anything else, choices are good, and there's a torrent of information out there about what you can do and what's good and what's not good. And now there's a lot of sources for curating some of that information, and I think that's where the average weekend golfer needs to be more cognizant, because you can go pick something up on eBay, you can go pick something up from the shop down the street. All those things are viable options, of course, and there are plenty of people that would take your money, but you're much better off getting some guidance about what should be in your hand, because I think you get more satisfaction for the money you're spending.
Yeah, I think you can going to get fit is your best option. You could also hang out on the Golf Tech YouTube page and learn a ton about the equipment that you would go try and make a decent buying decision on your own, if that's what you want to do. If you're really like a golf nerd, we've got tons of golf nerd stuff. Brad did a driver review of all these Callaway drivers. It was much more in depth than what I just did. I mean, information's out there. It's a good time to be a consumer. And then your earlier point of Callaway, they have made 3 drivers that really encompass like every problem someone could have. There's nothing that they missed in this line. I think it's maybe the most inclusive of all of them.
Well, in the ball flight, and Nick, I've heard you talk about this before, the ball flight difference from one particular configuration of a Callaway driver on, we'll call it the left side of the range, compared to the right side of the range. I mean, you're talking 30, 35, 40 yards difference in ball flight. And when you think about how possible that is now in 2020 for the same dollars, I mean, it costs the same. You're just getting better tuning. And when you think of how much of a ball flight difference you can create with the same swings, there's a lot of players out there who are making the game harder than it has to be, because they can essentially fix 40 yards of mistake just by making the right purchase.
Yeah. At one point, Callaway had done some math of, if you move, I mean, we talk a lot about how you can move this little X edger here. If it moves a couple millimeters one way or the other, that can matter. Well, when they had the first version, I believe, of Epic, and you could move the center of gravity 4 millimeters. It's very small.
Right.
But at 100 miles an hour, that equals almost 20 yards of difference left or right. Well, now you can move these even further. So 5.5 millimeters is usually the most I can move one of the center of gravities. Now you're talking about maybe like 30 yards if you swing 100 miles an hour, maybe even more than that. So 30 yards to the right now becomes online without changing much. It can go the other way too if you don't make a good decision. So you buy the wrong one and you have your error 30 yards more egregious because of how you have the club set up. So it's important.
I think the other thing that's important too to remember is your specs change over time. I mean, that's not so much a year-over-year thing, but as you get older, your specs change. I had ankle surgery in March, and I can now move closer to the way I moved 2 or 3 years ago. And then when I got fit I have the PXG driver now, and just the fit from that club compared to the Cobra driver that I had last year was substantially different, just because of what I can do physically this year versus last year. So I don't think you need to go month in and month out and get fit, but you should definitely check in on your fitting every once in a while, just because you might be surprised by the change in the settings.
Mm-hmm. Couple that with a 9-degree driver of this Sub-Zero is not the same 9-degree driver of this Maverick Max. They do not perform the same. You might get a couple degrees of launch difference out of that, if not more. So it's important to try it, get fit, use a launch monitor, have someone there who does it, who professionally fixes people's swings so they know actually what you're doing poorly, but also fits golf clubs. I think that's your best combo.
Well, I think, Nick, you've probably seen it a million times, but how about the scenario where you're going to play with your buddy and you're on the range ahead of time and they've got some kind of driver? This is more common pre-social distancing days, but you take your buddy's driver and you go, hey, let me try that. And you smoke one, right? The first swing. It's your most relaxed swing of the day, and you smoke one and you say, you know what, I'm going to go get one of those. And you go get it with the same specs that your friend's club had because, hey, man, I hit that one good. And quickly realize after hitting 25 of them with your own club the next week that might not have been the best.
Yeah, it's not the way to do it.
The best purchase. There is a more sophisticated way to do that these days.
Don't buy what the best players play. That's probably wrong for you to begin with. Don't try your buddy's club, and then because you've had a club,
but you need more information.
Don't buy your buddy's club because you hit it once really well, and you might have a club you had in high school that you hit really good. Don't keep it just to keep it. There's a better option for you, I'm sure.
Even Henrik Stenson switched out that Diablo 3-wood he had.
He had the toughest time finding a new 3-wood, but even he's doing it. Yeah.
Sorry guys, I'm distracted over here. I'm trying to see how much value I have in my garage right now.
What'd you come up with?
Here, let me share my screen.
You don't even want to know how much I have in my garage.
Yes, I do. That's the point. Other people feel like they're alone in this golf battle all the time.
So I've got these 6 sets of old TaylorMade irons. I don't know if I can let these go though. I'll be honest.
Hey, you can keep those collectors. They're just gonna sit in your garage though. If you have,
I'm waiting for an OEM to do like the car companies do, where you can when you conquer someone from the competing, like if Callaway really wanted to capture somebody from TaylorMade, you get conquest cash that's more than if it was
200% value.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Callaway's going to listen to this.
If somebody does that, so. I want my percentage for that idea.
So how much do you want? Because that could be a big.
However much the person who took the E out of Maverick got. Same
Oh, well played. That's good. Cordy, you're like everyone else though. You have these old clubs. You aren't going to use those TP smokes. And if you do, you shouldn't.
It looks so good though. Nice. They look so great.
I battle that same thing. All my sets come from friends of mine who play professional golf, and then I think, do I really want to get rid of those? No one else has these things. But yes, you want to get rid of them.
Okay.
Good. Sorry, man. I'm thinking how much happier your wife will be. Get rid of them, then tell your wife what an amazing deed you did. She'll love you even more than she does now.
I just sent a set of my Cobra irons to my cousin, and just the act of sending them to my cousin made my wife happy, and it didn't even involve a financial transfer.
Right. Think of all the marriages you're saving right now, Cordy. You and Matt.
Hey, I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna mess around. We're actually gonna do this. This is not a bit. I need to get rid of these things. This is great.
I have to get a tractor trailer to carry them all in.
Yes. And then if you want some information on all this stuff, you can check out a little bit. There's a little more detail on the Golf Tech page, especially with just the Callaway Tech. If you want to learn a little more about jailbreak or the triaxial carbon that's on the top of all these things, which makes them a little bit lighter, and a touch more about the cost here. It's a good starting point. And then this can connect you to a coach who can help you find your way to them, and they'll help you deal with the $150 50% that you're getting for those trade-ins. That is probably one of the biggest pains I think average golfers go through, or you watching this. Trying to do this on your own, you got to go find a box, and you got to print a shipping label, and you got to make sure you don't do something wrong. If you do, there's no recourse until the company gets the golf clubs, and then they tell you, "Oh, this isn't what you think it is." You can avoid all of the indecision and all the problems just by letting your golf tech coach deal with that. They'll take care of all that for you.
All right, guys. Well, Nick, tomorrow, I don't want to reveal any production secrets around here. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing some Q&A and cooking, huh?
Tomorrow or right after this?
Yes. Come on. I mean, you might accidentally burn your computer, though. We've experienced some of your thoughts on that.
Aren't you in a low oxygen environment?
I am. I can barely breathe right now. Sucked it all right out of the room. It's crazy. Unbelievable. That'll be fun. We're going to do a little mountain view tomorrow. So I think if you want to hear some Q&A about golf tech and what it is that we do and don't do and just general golf things, I'm going to try to do that and multitask, and you're going to get to stare at the Rocky Mountains. Why wouldn't you do it?
Let's do it. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Later.